In this final video in the HTML5 section, we'll be looking at just a small number of remaining cool features of HTML5 and why we might want to use them. To start off, one of the biggest philosophical changes behind HTML5 is that we're now aiming to make our HTML more human readable than it was before. And this has led to a number of changes on the styling front, for example, changing B to strong, but it's also led to some new elements, some of which we've actually seen in the Bootstrap section of the course and in WordPress as well. So one of them is the article, which is essentially just a div that's used for article content. So it would be the main content section of a blog post, for example. But then we can style it directly using article without using any classes or IDs. So something like that. Let's take a look. There we go. There are a number of other elements which are essentially just divs but renamed to make your HTML more readable, and they are header, footer, article, section, nav, and menu. Again, some of which we've seen before. But all of these are essentially divs, but we just use these names to make our HTML more standardized and readable. One small note is that Internet Explorer at the time of recording will by default give these elements a display of inline, which means they'll appear to the right of previous elements rather than a display of block, which means that they will stretch to the whole width of their container and go onto a new line. And that's normally what we want for these div-like elements. So if you're going to be using them, it's recommended to put display as block to make sure that they're displayed correctly in Internet Explorer. We can even create our own elements, which is pretty fun, using JavaScript. So we can use something like document.create element. Let's say we wanted to call our element a container. And then we could use container in our HTML as well, which is quite good fun. While we're talking about new elements, there's also a new image containing element called figure. And this is designed to help us put captions and connect those with images. So let's say we've got an image. Let's just go and find one quickly. Let's have Maggie Simpson. So we'll just view that image. There we go. Copy the URL. Great. Just make sure that's displaying properly. There we go. And while we're adding an image, it's worth stating that in HTML5, for an image to be correct HTML, it has to have an alt tag. So all images should have alt tags in HTML5. And then if we want to have our caption, we use fig caption. And then just put something like Maggie Simpson. And then if we have a look, you can see that the caption is nicely aligned to the image. Obviously, we'd probably want to style that to make it display how we want. But again, the aim is really to make our HTML readable and to see that this is definitely supposed to be a caption related to this particular image. While we're talking about new tags, this one's not exactly new, but it has been redefined, and we can now use small to display some small text. So if I wanted to quote the location of this image source, then I could do that easily using small. And the last new one I'll show you is mark, which essentially highlights your text. Let's take a look. There we go. We've seen this next one before, particularly in the mobile app section, but we can now add data attributes with anything we like. So I might want to add data description and then use baby or something like that. This will be perfectly valid HTML, and I can put whatever word I like in there. And then if I want to access that and get the value of that tag at some point, I can do that easily with JavaScript, which you'll remember I don't need the type variable in HTML5 anymore. I'll just give this an ID. So to access the data description, I use document.getElementById, and then get the element by its ID, and then get attribute. And the attribute that I want to get is data description. And then for now, I could just alert that. And that should alert baby for us. There we go. I'll just comment that out for now. And now there's just two more things left I'd like to show you. The first is a new type of input called range, which is very simply a slider. You can see it down the bottom there, and we can slide from left to right to choose our value. We can specify some options as well. So we could specify what the minimum value is. So we might go for 0 there, what the maximum value is, so maybe 100. And we can also specify the step value. So we might want it to go up in tens or ones, depending on our form. And then that doesn't change the look of the slider, but it does if we change the step to something high. You'll notice that we can only then pick particular values, so it jumps up and down. And then we can get the result of that either through JavaScript using val or through our form when it's submitted via PHP. Excellent. So one more thing, and I've saved one of the best features till last, and this one is the content editable feature, which essentially makes any content on your website editable by the user. So if I just add some code here, or just some straightforward text, and we then refresh the page, as the user, I can now go in and edit that text directly. So you could use that to create a diary or interactive coding application. And one advantage over, say, text areas is that we can use this on any element type. So if we wanted to create a to-do list app, for example, we could make the UL content editable. I'll just put an example list element in there. And then if we take a look, so we can now edit the options that are there, but we can also add options of our own, and the formatting is maintained. So we're getting a new list item as we add a new item on our to-do list. So that takes us to the end of what we're going to look at from HTML5. Now it's time to look at one of the major new specifications that goes along with it, and that's CSS3.